everybody. We will now begin the pre-event of the 2023 Interfaith Coalition Conference for Global Citizens. And the first pre-event is titled Interfaith Dialogue. And we will start by watching a short video.
Has been subjected to difficult and harsh tests. The coronavirus has discouraged the activities of global citizens who have longed for world peace. And the COVID-19 has destroyed the hopeful future of mankind, which has been achieved through dialogue and cooperation. Humans are barely escaped from the fear of the COVID-19 virus. But the global citizens who have lost the value of solidarity and harmony are suffering from hate crimes that express global polarization and racism, religious and cultural conflicts, and the war caused by greed for resources. Due to the messy development and the pollution from economic wars, the Earth's ecosystem is entering an era of terrible extinction. Weak creatures and poor neighbors suffer first because of increasing natural disasters and climate change. And this extreme climate crisis is making today's civilization unsustainable. In this post-COVID era, we face the turbulent international situation which is becoming more fragmented amid. How can religions overcome such crisis? How can humanity restore the solidarity and cooperation of the citizens of the world? And how can we recover the essence of religion that can give grace to each other? Let's open the prelude for a spiritual awakening that will pioneer a new future. At the Interfaith Coalition Conference for Global Citizens 2023.
So give me, or you can applause, that's fine. So it gives me such a great pleasure to introduce our moderator and our panelists. I'd like to invite our moderator panelists to come to the stage, please. We have Dr. Makrunno, Mr. Montian THANANAAT, Reverend Kyoichi SUGINO, and Dr. Roberto Catalano. Dr. Makrunno is the president of the Society for Buddhist-Christian Studies, and he's graciously taken on the role of chairperson for this session. So Dr. Uno, I pass it on to you. Thank you.
Welcome everyone. Since this is the first pre-session, I would just like to give a brief word of thanks to the One Buddhist organization, which is serving as an amazing host for this wonderful conference managed by the ICCGC and the sponsorship of the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism of Iksan City and the United Religions Foundation. The way that we will proceed will be to have each of our speakers speak for roughly 10 minutes. Then our speakers will respond to each other, and then we will open up to question and answer and comments from the audience. So I'll give very simply a brief introduction to our three speakers, and I will pose a question to them to which they will all respond from their prepared presentations. First, we will have Mr. Montian THANANAAT, Secretary General, World Fellowship of Buddhists. Then Reverend Kyoichi SUGINO, President, Gakurin Seminary, Bishoko Seikai, and former Deputy Secretary General, Religions for World Peace International. And then we will have Dr. Roberto Catalano, Associate Professor, Sofia University Institute, and former Co-Director, International Office for the Interreligious Dialogue for Kodarin Movement, Rome. So the question that we have prepared for all of our presenters to respond to is the following. We are living in a time of much global conflict, thinking about what is happening in places like Myanmar, Ukraine, the Middle East, and elsewhere. In terms of a sustainable Earth, it appears we may be close to or past the tipping point of climate change and global warming. It seems that each of you and each of us has important roles to play in such a world of great need. What is the role of interfaith, interreligious dialogue in a world today? So first, we will have Mr. Montian Tenatar make his presentation.
Most venerable reverends, and all the friends in Dhamma, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Or in the other hand, I will say Namo Amida Buddha. Namo, yeah. That's how we praise my Lord Buddhas. First of all, according to what Dr. Anand is raising, that we are having this session because of we have some crisis happening in the world, and we believe that our interfaith dialogues can help. And this, I will start on the Buddhism side, that we talk a lot really concerning this matter is about what is loving kindness and compassion. Loving kindness, on the other hand, we call, maybe some of you may be familiar with these words, with metta. Yeah. And this compassion is karuna. What is the difference between metta and karuna? Metta is something like we want others to be happy, but karuna is like when we see someone having suffering and we want them to be relieved from the sufferings. So, and this is one of the main Buddha teaching. I believe that if we have this heart and thinking of these two important Buddha teaching in our hearts, that will solve the first problem that we are talking about, the war that happened in many parts of the world. And if we have compassion and we have a loving kindness, we just want others to be happier, or to be out of suffering. And what we can do on this is maybe I know that the problem that we have nowadays is not a problem that it's not really what we can do much on interfaith dialogues alone, because it's all involving with the leaders of many countries. But what we can do as the organizations, must have some dialogue with maybe we can send some message for them, and with the compassion and with the loving kindness that we have, to make a positive way, rather than pushing very hard because of some of the political issue. It cannot be easily solved by very strong a negative message. And what I'm thinking is that maybe we can use spokesmen or our Buddhist leaders or the leaders, religious leaders all over the world, in order to say some word, which many leaders did, and we can do some dialogue together in order to make such a kind of statement and let them realize. Maybe the other way is to use some very famous artists and which can make some impact to the world in order to make many people awareness on this in order to reduce the feeling of the hatred or the hate that happen and people, killing each other and this whole thing is against, I think, all religions' teachings. And as the Interfaith Dialogue, we think that we should send some message for them in a very constructive way. Yeah. So, what our Buddha taught is the interconnectedness and interdependence and impermanence, and that is what we can apply to the situations. Regarding the global warming, this is another big issue that we can apply this to. Because when we love ourselves and we love others and we have this compassion and loving kindness, and when we're talking about everything is interconnected by itself, yeah, and our actions, we have the reflections to everything around. When we are more selfish and we do a lot of the harm to the nature, Mother Nature, it will come back to us. It's like what we call karma. What you do, and you get the result of what you did. And this is the message that we should let them having to learn about what they shouldn't be done in order to make this world cooler. And I think many activities have been done. It's a part of one of the important issues in the SDG, and we keep on talking about it. But in order to make it into actions, I think Interfaith Dialogue can help in order to make such a message too. In order to, when you love, other people, you love yourself, and why don't we share and we help? As we see that many countries, very keen on, campaign to make a better world today. But there are still many countries which still ignore about this. And what we can do is that, sending some messages, doing some activity, seminar, whatever, in order to making them an awareness. And I can see many countries still don't care about the waste that we have, and don't care about what we have done to the Mother Nature. They still cut the tree in order to make them richer and richer, and carbon footprint problem, another kind of problem. If we have belief, same principle that we apply, for others, and like compassion, loving kindness, so it's going to be the same thing that we should send them a message like this. And I remember many years ago that when I was still very young, and I have a fundraising for the kids in Africa, and all the artists come together and making a very high impact, to save Africa, and many people starving and dying because of the hunger, and that is very high impact. And we can see that we don't have that kind of activities, many activities, and even also this is a global issue. any major country who make damage to the world, to the Mother Nature, just see people doing that, which is the what we can do, from the outside is I think it's the same way as we do for the war that we have, not to sending the message for them and making some impact, and this and the impact that we make is going to come from the very famous or influential people, which I believe that now one thing is very, very popular amongst the people in the world, particularly the youngster or the young generation, which is the artists. Like in Korea, you have the very famous bands, like famous K-pop, like rapping. If we can have some of them or to be ambassador to sending this message on the war side, on the global warming. I think that would be a very special dialogue that is sending them and let the people being aware, and maybe because that is the kind of actually they are the kind of leaders to make the people follow, and you can see anything there. For example, like any product that they use or they show on their Instagram or Facebook, people will follow. And if they keep saying, the same things that we kind of dialogue that we always want to send them to the world, and that will make a big change, I believe. That is what for the interfaith that we think that according to Buddha teachings, I think that we have many common belief with other religions in order to make world better. And this kind of issue and the problem that we have just can be solved, and with all of us united and making some impact rather than just having an interfaith dialogue, and we don't take bigger action. I think the actions speak louder than words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montian THANANAAT. And next, we will have Reverend Kyoichi SUGINO.
Good afternoon. I'm so happy to see many of my friends from Korea and internationally. And let me first appreciate Won Buddhism. Won Buddhism has been Risho Koseka, my Buddhist community's long-term friend, and also Gakurin Seminary, in which I'm leading, is a good friend and partner of Won Buddhism's initiative in educating and nurturing the minds of younger generation. Here in this room, we see many young people from Korea, and you have the future and hope for the world. And I have my own students watching from Japan. Gakurin seminarians watching this international event in Japan, listening to great wisdom of wonderful colleagues, international interfaith leaders, and engaged Buddhist practitioners. Let me share with you one great story. When we do interfaith work, sometimes dramatic thing happens. And it was some time ago. I'm getting older, so my story is old story, classic story. But it was a cooperation between Japanese and Korean religious leaders in hosting Iraqi religious leaders, Sunni and Shia Muslims, and the Christians all together and Dr. Sang Kim, Tae-sung Kim, and others, Professor Bill, and others were part of this initiative. And what happened was when Sunni Shia Christian leaders in Iraq were struggling the post-war reconstruction, they discussed, people from different faith, different religions, they discussed and they disagreed with everything else. But one thing they agreed on was helping war-injured children. So religious leaders in Korea, diverse faith communities, invited Iraqi medical doctors and also religious leaders from Iraq and children injured by the war. And Korea International Cooperation Agency, KOICA, funded the training of medical doctors and helping war-injured children here in Korea. So in this story, there are very, very important messages. One is religious leaders across countries and cultures collaborating together, partner in concrete challenge and care for children affected by war. So that's one thing. Engaging spirituality, love, compassion, care for children in this important project. Secondly, there has been the permanent mechanism, sustainable mechanism of interfaith dialogue and cooperation here in Korea and in Japan and other places. So when you try to continue dialogue and action, you need to build sustainable mechanisms. Here in Korea, there is Korean Conference of Religions of Peace, KCRP. In Japan, Religions of Peace Japan. So such mechanism of collaboration is helping religious communities working together, as previous speaker said, not only dialogue, concrete action together. So in order to do the action, you need the mechanism, sustainable mechanism, and creating habit of collaboration during the wartime, conflict, situation in conflict, and also in times of peace. So that's critical, creating sustainable interface mechanism. Let me mention another important thing. When you dialogue with each other, the Pope Francis Catholic Church invited U.S. Buddhist delegation to the Vatican. And if you look at Laudato Si, papal encyclical on the environment, you find many references to interconnectedness, inner peace, and enlightened simplicity, which here in this room, there are many Buddhist friends, and you find the sympathy for solidarity in those terms. Inner peace, interconnectedness, and enlightened spirituality. So those were in the papal encyclical. This is the result of long assiduous process of the interfaith dialogue, global interfaith dialogue, and interfaith discussions between Christians and Buddhists. In fact, when we Father Leo and I and some other participants joined Pope Francis in 2015 around this encyclical, my fellow panelist, Dr. Roberto, was translating, interpreting Pope Francis. But this kind of interfaith dialogue has evolved into such concreteness. Even papal encyclical include global multi-religious consensus and sometimes the good findings and discoveries from Buddhist-Christian dialogue. And I end my remarks with another important term, bilingualism. When we do religious engagement and interreligious collaboration, we have to think about bilingualism. Our primary language is religious language. Our secondary language is a public language. So sometimes we use our own language and respective religious communities' language, but we have to work together around using public language. And it's happening, bilingualism is seen in different settings. For instance, when religious leaders go into conflict, mediation, conflict negotiation, track 1 process is governmental process, but track 2 process is multi-religious, sometimes civil society initiatives. And these days, from my own 23-year experience with religions of peace, that track 1, between track 1 and track 2, there is track 1.5. The government, legal and political considerations, diplomatic considerations have to be supported by track 2, multi-religious diplomacy. So those things are also the expression of bilingualism. We have to speak the language of our own religions and also public language. And we have to work together. In this conference, already the Korean government, through the Ministry of Culture, is supporting this initiative. So that kind of governmental and civil society, and particularly multi-religious efforts, have to go hand in hand. That's bilingualism. And I said it's 2 minutes. So I will, since my students are also listening in Japan, let me share my own seminary. It's called Gakurin Seminary, and it's a global training center for engaged Buddhism and interfaith action. So although it's a Buddhist-inspired religious institution, we try our best to learn from other traditions, the rich wisdom from different faiths, and we have to put them into concrete practice. So the holistic and integral human development and education are needed. My friend, Professor Matsui, brought her students from Japan to witness this meeting. This experience, young people here in this room from Korea, this experience, people from different faiths working together, people from the governmental sector, from the religious sector, different sectors working together for peace. And we are not just talking about peace and feeling good about getting together. We are trying to put our teaching, values and virtues of peace, love, compassion, all those things in concrete action in our life. So that image and that experience is critically important for younger generation to taste. And our seminary, although it's a humble initiative, we try our best to educate younger generation as to become the agent of peace, instrument of peace, with rich wisdom and wisdom from different faith traditions of the world. So thank you so much.
Next, we will have Dr. Roberto Catalano.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you once again, as my predecessors have already mentioned, to the organizers of this wonderful convention. Really congratulations, because it's very timely, extremely well organized. We all felt very much welcome. So thanks to you and all the Korean people in a special way. Now, regarding the question which has been put up to us, I would like to widen a little bit the horizon and start with a quotation from a religious leader. I speak from a Western European viewpoint, perspective, and also as a Catholic. And I would like to put things in context by quoting a sentence from Pope Francis. He has been already mentioned, the present Catholic Pope in Rome. He said several times, what we are experiencing today is not simply an epoch of changes, but an epochal change. And this is not only true for the West, it's not only true for Christianity, it is true for all religions. I think that also in Korea, in our countries, we experience the same, though in different ways. Now, as Westerners, as Europeans, we thought not later than 50 years ago that religion, and probably also religions, were at the end of their lives. For 250, 300 years, Europeans divided religion from science, religion from politics. The world made religion in the West a mere personal, private business. It was not something to be professed in public. Several scholars had foreseen that by this time religion would be out of the scene. Surprisingly, a scholar who foresaw this just a few years ago said that religion, or better, religions, had never been as alive as they are today. And this conference is a proof to this. But which kind of religions are coming back to the fore? And this not only in Europe, not only in the West, not only in Christian setups, but also in the East, in different parts of the world. Probably they are no longer the institutionalized religions that we knew before. The people need God, need the absolute, need spirituality. It is exactly a quest for spirituality that is coming back to the scene. And mind you, it's no longer a private sphere of life. It is a public sphere of life. So a bit all over the world, within all different religions, we are witnessing the return of the sacred, but in the form of spirituality. There are many ways to define spirituality. I like to define spirituality as a desire to read the respective scriptures, holy scriptures, to meditate upon them, but especially to try to live them, and subsequently to share the life and the experience of the scriptures among ourselves. So a narrative of religions in daily living. It is exactly in conjunction with this phenomenon that we notice that also these streams of spirituality met with each other and increased, magnified, promoted interfaith dialogue. Because interfaith dialogue is not a dialogue among religions. It's a dialogue between men and women, between human beings who believe in different religions. Religions will never dialogue among themselves, are the human beings that we are given the possibility of dialoguing. And in the Catholic world, where I belong, immediately a big question came out, but interreligious dialogue aiming at what? What is the goal? And the great Pope who preceded the present Pope Francis, Pope Paul VI, already in the 60s, spoke about the necessity that men and women in the world meet together, dialogue, with their own faiths in order to achieve peace. So peace is the real aim, the real goal, the real aim of an interfaith dialogue. Interfaith dialogue cannot be only academic, cannot be only intellectual. It has to be concrete, as it has been already said very well by my colleague Mr. SUGINO. So interfaith dialogue has to take place every day. I cannot hope in peace in Ukraine, in Russia, in Myanmar, unless I live peace with the people next to me. This also where spirituality prompts religions to work for interfaith dialogue. But interfaith dialogue promotes also human rights. And I give you a very simple example on how religious leaders can give a witness of inter-religious dialogue promoting human rights. We all know very well that today's society is characterized by massive migrations. Migrations are not taking place only today, they've taken place throughout humanity. But today, there are major problems with migrations, especially in Europe, in the Mediterranean Sea. We see people dying. From the beginning of the year, around 2,000 people have died in this big cemetery which the Mediterranean Sea has become around Italy. So, a couple of years ago, Pope Francis invited other religious leaders, in practice the Patriarch of Constantinople and also the Archbishop of Athens, to visit together some of these migrants in one of these refugee camps where the living conditions are simply subhuman. Now, was a sign, it was an image, but an image which sent across a very clear message that if we are people of faith, we cannot avoid living for the people who are coming to our place, people who are migrating to our own country. So religions can be also vehicles for human rights. And regarding the question that it was asked before, the relationship that interfaith dialogue may have with the environment and the role that it can play for the environment, it's enough to think that each of our religions speak of nature. Lord Buddha was inspired, he was enlightened under a Bodhi tree. Jesus spoke of the major of his parables referring to nature or examples taken from nature. And every religion can speak of something very important, crucial, which is very much connected to nature. In Hinduism, for instance, you cannot distinguish the cosmos, the absolute, the reality, from whatever is an expression of the cosmos, and we are all human beings and all creatures. So the commitment to keep this all alive comes also from men and women who have a faith. And it is exactly in collaborating with each other that we can go back to our scriptures, realize how important is the role of nature in our own faiths, and therefore to preserve whatever we can and to do whatever we can in order to preserve and to make sure that the environment is safe. And I would like to conclude with a final point in which all our religions can be very much instrumental in building dialogue today. We're all aware, especially the younger generation, that today we are heading towards artificial intelligence. It is a great chance, like all the great chances that we had in the last century, which changed our society and human history in a decisive, dramatic, crucial way. But it can be also a great danger. Imagine, as people of faith, if tomorrow we go to a temple and the abbot of the temple will deliver a speech not prepared by him, but by a robot, by a computer. Or we go for confession, we Christians, and the one hearing the confession is not a priest, but is a computer. and he gives us a few thoughts to think about from the computer mind, not from his mind. So religious people nowadays are working together in order to make an official oath, an official commitment to work together so that artificial intelligence can be a service to humanity and not a danger for humanity.
A very big thanks to our three wonderful presenters, and we are going to have each of them speak for 2 minutes each in anything that they would like to respond to in relation to the other speakers. But before they do so, I'm just going to give just a couple of notes, highlights from our three presenters. Here are some of what I picked up from their great presentations. This gathering is a wonderful gathering. It is a gathering where we have a space of peace, of calm, of compassion and love. In times of peace like this, interfaith friendship and mutual understanding can be developed so that when there is conflict, when there is difficulty around the world, we have already built bridges of friendship and understanding. Then we can move much more easily into helpful action. We can already see the work that has been done in our institutions, those of us who are teachers, that we can help to build this understanding with our colleagues, with our students, and how interfaith work is so beneficial for so many reasons. And we can see the concrete result of this, for example, in the way that some Buddhist ideas have been reflected in the papal encyclicals, and how Buddhists and Christians and others have learned from one another's faiths. Lastly, belief in our young people. Our time will have passed very quickly, and long after we are gone, it will be the young people, you who are in the audience, who will take up the torch to build a better world for yourselves and for others. And we have great belief in the inspirational power that our young people bring. Thank you very much. So 2 minutes each, and you can give your remarks where you are sitting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, in conclusions, I think that what we have said is the interfaith dialogues among different religions and many people. We make some movements in order to just making the impact. Is we have to do more, and maybe we can collaborate more among. And I think we still have many more people. We should have many people from different religions, to talk about the same thing. And this dialogue will spread over and making an impact to the world. And if all the religious leaders gonna talk about the same thing, and that really impact to this world, I believe that there will make some change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me make 2 points. I'm for a moderator's wonderful summary. And one thing is when mechanism for interfaith action is built, that mechanism can address different challenges in times of peace, in times of conflict. One example is in Africa, the Interreligious Council of Sierra Leone was built. So it's an interreligious mechanism, Christian, different denominations of Christian and Muslim working together. And when that interreligious mechanism was built, it was about the conflict, armed conflict at that time. But then they responded by using the same structure. They responded to Ebola crisis, and then the COVID crisis, the HIV/AIDS, and the COVID. So public health issues was being addressed by interreligious mechanisms. They built for conflict resolution. So that kind of, it's a dramatic example, but I wanted to share this example for our collective thinking. The second point is educating younger generation and educating ourselves. We talk about good things, values, justice, peace, compassion, but virtues, I'm increasingly realizing that the virtues are critical. Virtue is habitual orientation to values. So you embody values by repeated practice. So the virtue, you become a virtuous person by always aligning your action with those values. So repeated action is critical, and the younger generation and older generation as well, cultivating those values, the virtues is critical. Virtue as habitual orientation to values is critical for integral and holistic human education.
The thought which always comes to my mind in occasions of this kind and came to my mind a few minutes ago, also this time, is that often people say, but what is the use of these conferences? The world will never change. Or we go out of this hall and then we have to tackle a reality which is not the same that we found in this hall. Now, I'm always grateful. The real prevailing sentiment in me, whenever there is a moment like this, it's always the one of gratitude for having the chance of experiencing once again the beauty, the richness of the different perspectives that dialogue offers to us. I realized that I'm a Christian from the West, speaking in a panel with two Buddhists from the East, one Theravada, the other Mahayana, and a moderator who comes from the States with Japanese origins. Now, this is a unique experience. It's not an experience that we have every day. And if we experience this in this moment, why can't we experience this when we go out from this hall practically with the people we encounter, the people we live with? So my reaction is always the one of thanking my colleagues for their contribution, because they have given something to me, but also to get the encouragement to go ahead in the pathway of dialogue.
And now we would like to welcome questions and comments from the audience, and if someone can take the microphone and either pass the microphone or have them come up and speak at a microphone, that would be wonderful. And please say your name and then offer the question or comment that you have. And please be as brief as possible so that we can have as many comments from the audience as possible. Thank you. You can take a minute to think about it.
Well, I thank everyone for such an amazing speech. I was especially intrigued by Dr. Catalano's idea that the rise of spirituality. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Lee. I'm a junior studying Buddhist studies at Ogang University. And to go back to the question, I was really intrigued by Dr. Catalano's point that there is the rise of spirituality in the place of institutional religion. I think it's something that we can all agree on, and we sort of take notice, but hasn't become widespread dialogue yet. And I'm so happy that you brought it up in this situation. And I wanted to ask, as an aspiring minister for Won Buddhism, what would be the role of the clergy in the new era of spirituality in the place of institutionalized religion? Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful practical question. Very interesting. Now, this phenomenon of rising spirituality or spiritualities doesn't mean that official religions disappear. What is interesting is that this quest for spirituality is meant in order to make institutionalized religions more meaningful and more updated to the needs of the men and women living in today's society. So my answer is very quick and very short. Let's try to go back to our own Holy Scriptures. See what is the message, the core message that they give us. Meditate upon it. But then go out and try to live it. And share it with the others. We are credible if we preach about interfaith dialogue, if we are also imitable. If the people see in us that we are trying to implement what we say. So, in a way, more than masters, we have to be witnesses. And to witness what the scriptures of our own religion say. And in doing this, we meet with other people. It's like the rays of the sun. They're different one from the other. But the more they go towards the sun, the closer they come to each other. So the same, the more we live our scriptures, the more we recognize each other, though our scriptures are different.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have comments or questions they would like to share? And please identify yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for your brief sharing. My name is Ingun Kam, Jesuit priest working in Cambodia, and also consultant for Political Council, Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue in Vatican. I was very impressed by all your sharing, which is shared with my research and my work in interreligious dialogue. I have a question to Ms. Dr. Reverend Kyoichi. My name is correct, Kyoichi, right? You are emphasizing about the virtuous approach to this all interreligious effort and collaboration for peace and justice and environmental issues. Very interesting and very, I agree with you that the virtuous approach, especially future generation, young generation, need this kind of integral education to repeat habitual practice for all these values and also all these issues. But as we all know, the education environment and also education system, also the religious environment in our own experience, very far from that. And also in the age of AI, the artificial intellectual age, how can we really help them or to introduce them to this approach more practically? Do you have any more suggestions or practical aspect? I want to hear more. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. The virtue-oriented approach that I will repeat, that value-based, value-inspired activities, we do take action. So human rights, environmental campaign, and other things. But we sometimes forget about becoming a good person ourselves. So that the aspect, even from educational perspectives, we have to be conscious about that. And what we are doing in our seminary is younger students learn from the nature. So we have the campus in the mountain, and students do rice cultivation, for instance, in the nature. So learning from the nature and struggling with the nature, it's not easy. Rice cultivation is not a simple thing. It's a difficult thing. But through that process, learning about the how to become a compassionate rice cultivator and producer, watching the plants and the nature and how understanding, recognizing we are all part of the nature, and try to live the religious message with the love, compassion, care for the earth. So I mentioned virtue cultivation, maybe two things. One is when we do peace-related activities or interfaith dialogue, we go beyond feel good conversations. We are happy. We share faith. We enjoy talking about peace. But we say engaged Buddhism, the engaged spirituality is to do concrete action together, sometimes in the nature. And doing the rice cultivation is one example, but other things together. And taking action together and putting ourselves into the very, very difficult, hard challenges. And in Cambodia, in Battambang and other places, I can imagine there are so many situations, tough situations, and bringing younger generation into such difficult, complex situation and try to live the religious values. So that's, I think, key in our cultivation of virtue in younger generation's mind.
Yes, thank you. And others who might have questions or comments, and please know that you can make your comments or ask questions in English, Korean, or Japanese, because we have translators working for us. So any of these three languages is okay.
Yes, Christy Cheng from Taiwan. Thank you all panelists and our great moderator. I have actually two questions. The first one for Dr. Catalano. I very much agree with you in feeling that like such gathering, this kind of conference is a great moment of gratitude. Very often I encounter questions like, okay, what is a conference for? So I would like to hear your personal response to such a question. How would you respond personally to such questions? And second one for Reverend Sugino. You mentioned about how the interfaith dialogue model was actually applied to conflict resolution, COVID, aid. Could you expand a little bit more on that? How is that expanded? Thank you.
I hope I understood well your question. I answer looking back, because the question has been asked to me many times. What is the meaning of a meeting like this? And very often, if not always, I answer going back in history. 50, 60 years ago, people like all of us in this hall used to ignore each other. I remember when I studied in school, for me the Buddhists were a name, an Italian word, but I never seen a Buddhist in my life. I remember there was a Protestant in my building, and my mother used to tell me, when you go down and you pass in front of their door, keep in mind that they are Protestants. And I was 5, 6 years old, and I said, my God, who knows how the Protestants look alike? One day, the door opened, and for a moment I was terrified. And then I realized that they were two elderly, gentle, most refined people. And within my mind of a child, I said, oh God, they are much better than all the other Catholic people of the building. So thinking, of course, when I was 5 years old, I could not reason in that way. It was not, but thinking of that incident, when I started working Interfaith Dialogue, I say, from that stage to a moment like today, we have covered a long way. Now, the history of humanity, it's a very, 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 very long way. So we still have a very, very long way ahead of us. But thank God we have reached up to now.
Thank you. Let me stick to my example of Sierra Leone. So in the conflict situation, almost all the population are religious in Sierra Leone, and the Christians and Muslims, perhaps half and half in the population. And they are all affected by the conflict, armed conflict. And what happened was, especially women of faith, with great courage, Muslims and Christian women of faith in Sierra Leone went into the rebel territory, negotiated with the rebel leader for the release of child hostages. So that's a dramatic example, but interfaith, women from Christian and Muslim, Islamic traditions working together and save the children. And then later, Interreligious Council of Sierra Leone, Muslims and Christians Council, they were asked by the president of the country and the rebel group leader, both of them, to serve as a mediator. And they were invited to the official governmental peace processes in Lome, Togo, and joined by the United Nations and the governments. But this trust building and treating even conflicting parties with respect, that was achieved through the mediation of the religious leaders. So that's a concrete example, and that trust and confidence they built through those working together experience served as the mechanism for COVID and Ebola. When COVID and Ebola happened, sometimes those things considered as God's punishment and so on, that the general population had rumor and suspicion, and all those things happened. And religious leaders stand up. Same people who worked for the conflict resolution stood up and worked together to eliminate and overcome those stereotyping and impossible rumor. So that kind of thing happened in Sierra Leone, very concrete, but in other countries, similar things are happening.
Yes, thank you. And as moderator, I'm just going to add a couple of comments here. So first of all, thank you so much for your question and comments, Christy Yuling Chung. And I just want the audience to know that she has had very important leadership roles in International Buddhist Confederation and in Shakadita, International Association of Buddhist Women, for which she has served as president. And part of the reason why I'm mentioning this is Reverend Sugino just mentioned the important role and abilities of women in interreligious situations and how that can go beyond the specific situation of children to serve the entire community. So I believe that many men, as represented in this conference, have many great abilities, but oftentimes it is women who have even greater abilities in the area of love and peace and compassion. And I think that the organization of this conference reflects that, because many women have very important leadership roles in Won Buddhism and the organization of this conference. And I think as we move forward in this moment and into the future, we need to support the leadership abilities of women in our communities, as well as men and everyone in our communities.
Thank you so much. I am Dr. Muzaffari Muhammad Hassan, research professor at Busan University of Foreign Studies. Since I am Muslim and maybe don't have enough voice here, so let me quote from Quran in this regard, just comment. And in the same direction that all the lecturers gave their views. In fact, in Quran it says, all believers. That means all of us who believe. Who believes in spirituality, who believe in supernatural being, or anyhow, all of us, when we don't describe him, all of us, we believe in him as a creator. He says, oh believer, always be with justice. When we are always observe justice, this is the duty that we have, all of the believers. Then he says, the atrocity and aggression of others should not take you away from justice. That means they should not tempt me or encourage me to go away from justice. Justice is very important. So I have to be with justice. Maybe they are not Muslims. Maybe people who are oppressed. They belong to any other religion or schools. No, I have to be with justice. So this is the one important principle that Quran says. Be with justice, observe justice, always. Even if it is against you, even if it is against yours and your father, your children, be with justice. This is one thing. Second, it says, تعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. You help rightness, good, and never support aggression and atrocity. It's very clear message. It is the teaching that all of us, are That means we have to always cooperate. Wherever it is proposed that there is a proposal that we have to use to solve this problem, we have to go towards solving the problems. But unfortunately, many of us, either because of the personality or maybe identity or maybe greatness or whatever it is, they are not from religious teachings. So we have to be careful not to take a wrong way. I think it is a very commonality. All the religions are teaching this. So the role of Muslim leaders, the role of all religious leaders is to be just. Even if it is against their own community, even if it is against their own self, that we should observe always justice and help good, and always stand with the suppressed people, with the people who are suffering. We have to just share our truth and help. So I think this is the best way to solve all the problems, whether it is a natural problem or artificial problems. We have to just look after each other and be just. Sorry if I took a lot of the time.
Thank you so much.
저는 KCRP 종교간대화위원회의 손정명 수녀입니다. 카톨릭입니다. 말씀을 들으면서 이렇게 많이 배웠는데요. 특별히 로베르토 박사님께 질문, 설명을 좀 더 부탁드리고자 합니다. AI 시대의 종교와의 그런 관계 참 감사히 잘 들었는데요. 그 AI 시대와 그 윤리적인 그런 문제를 어떻게 종교간 대화를 통해서 할 수 있는지, 혹시 새로운 방법이 있는지 좀 더 설명을 해주시면 감사하겠습니다.
I'm not an expert in this. It's not my subject. But I know that it's a great concern at different levels. And for instance, as for us Christian Catholics, recently the Holy See, the Vatican, issued a very interesting document which you can read on the website of the Vatican. Precisely, let's say, trying to inspire Christians, as we are Christians, to make use of artificial intelligence in a positive way, and not to be overcome by the artificial intelligence, but to make use of it. It's a very interesting thing that it's available for everyone. Of course, it's a document of the Catholic Church for the Catholics, but it's universal. It's not a faith document. It's a document or recommendation to make it more evident. Now, something that I mentioned before is that some representatives, sometimes scholars in this field of different religions, have come together because they are concerned about the consequences that this can have on humanity, in order to prepare a draft of a document to be accepted by members, leaders and members of different religions, to commit ourselves as believers to use the artificial intelligence, but always keeping the person, the human being, at the end, at the center of the interest and the goal of artificial intelligence. I think this should be the main element, the crucial element for our commitment. Not to discard it, because it's an opportunity, but also to keep into account that artificial intelligence should not be at the center of our concern. It is the human being that is at the center of our concern.
Thank you so much, and our session is coming to an end, so I would like to conclude by having Mr. Montian THANANAAT give one final comment. Please go ahead.
I think my last comment is about, I think there's still many issues that we have in the world nowadays, and what the last question is about the AI, which gonna change another, it's gonna be a big change, and we're gonna have many challenges come together. I mean, that's about to come, and we believe that one thing that can solve this is interfaith dialogues. Can be very efficient tools, and at least when we gather here, and I would like to thank for the one reason that's organized this interfaith dialogue, and believe that we're gonna bring this useful information, and make it to have some impact to the world. Thank you.
So a big thank you to our presenters, and to those of you who provided rich questions and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Dr. No, and our esteemed panelists. Thank you for keeping us on time. So we have refreshments available outside. We're going to take a break. Come back here at 3 p.m. See you soon.